Hi everybody, this is Mr. Cohen and I'm going to try to give you a video lecture based on what we're doing in week 10. Good news, the sun came up today, this day after the presidential election. So I always said once the sun comes up, you know that life goes on, am I right? And maybe you're happy from it and maybe you're not, I don't know. And enough of the politics, let's get rolling. We are looking at hearing, writing, and analyzing phrase relationships. And I've already given you my written weekly news, and you should read all of that, but I'm going to go through this as much as I can. It's going to take a while, and my computer might crash because it's not new. So you've got the overview and essential question. How does the musical phrase sound like the spoken phrase? That's going to come up. Make sure you write about that. Don't skip it. Don't do it after Friday. What a waste. Do it like now. If you never look at this checklist, look at this. Due date Friday, due date NA. Due date Friday, due Tuesday. The rest is due Tuesday. That's how that always goes. So keep track of this stuff. I say print it and check them off when you do them. That's how I did it when I learned how to do VHS. Build your knowledge. You're going to read. Now check all this out. You've got your Benward, chapter 6, and we're going to read it. Got your Ottman, chapter 5, and we're going to read it. Look at all of these things. I've already pulled them up for you. So I go up to, and there we go, changing classes at my school. Sight reading in minor. I'm not sure why that page just happened. It gives you different ways to look at natural minor, harmonic minor, melodic minor, both forms, and then there's some warm-ups and stuff. That's singing stuff. Okay, then we have melodic organization. This is another one of your supplementary readings. The language concept and the musical equivalent. Oh my goodness, could that relate directly to what they're saying here? You're supposed to consider, where'd it go? Whoop, I'm already on Build Your Knowledge. You're supposed to consider how does the spoken word compare to the musical phrase, or musical phrase compared to the spoken word. So one of your supplements gets directly into that. Plus I wrote about it. Don't skip that. A tutorial on teoria. Try saying that. I brought that up for you already, so I don't have to wait. Forms, phrases, periods, motives. I didn't show you how I found it, but clicking it will get you there. And then you can take yourself through all these things. You know what's great about teoria? Musical examples. It's not just written, you can play it. It says here that this, whenever it comes up on my slow computer, that's going to be binary form. Can we at least listen? Takes a sec. I did this at home too. I don't know why we don't get to look at it. There's one phrase. Then. There you go. Half cadence. Now we start again. We're going to call that a parallel cadence, everybody. Sorry, period. Parallel period, because it's the same thing with a different ending. So take yourself through that teoria exercise. It's going to answer a lot of your questions about what does that really mean. You don't need me to do it for you. You can do it. All right, that's the end of that part. Warming up, you're going to write a quiz. I'm not going to take you through that. You know how to write a quiz. Listen and sing. They're going to ask you to go into Ottman. Oh, there's also this singing in minor scales. We've already looked at that. But maybe it'll make more sense for you once you've seen that. Ottman, Chapter 5, Introduction. So let's go take a look at Ottman here. Melody, minor keys, and leaps within the tonic triad. In minor, you know what? Read this. It tells you all kinds of great stuff about the raised 6th and 7th and the flatted 6th and 7th. It talks about how music will approach the 6th and 7th. It means that it's ascending or descending. This is all hugely good stuff. When a melodic line contains an ascending flat 7 or raised 6 without the raised 7th, that line is often based on one of the diatonic modes. There's all kinds of good stuff in here. So Scroll up, buddy. Scroll up. Special uses of 6 and 7, you need to read these things. And then it's going to get into great detail about the thirds and the sixths and the fourths, major versus minor. Gets into some solfege reading for you. And next thing you know, that's a lot of practice to do on a video lesson. Then you're into the studies. So there you go. That's what we have for singing. Listen and sing. Make sure you're doing some practicing before we get around to it. Create and compose. This might be the biggest part of the lesson. Although I haven't even taken you into the actual reading yet. So before I touch on all of these are short. Don't get so excited. 6.1, 2, 3, and 5, they're short. All right, it's not that bad. 6.7 is in the text. They want you to read it. You are not required to complete it. It doesn't even exist in NoteFlight, so don't worry about 6.7 doing it, but you do want to read it. All right, into the book. This is Benward. He was my teacher. Did I tell you that before? I think I did. That was a long time ago. Melodic organization. Look at all these topics, which is terms, right? In your school, you probably talk about terms. There are a lot of them. We're going to hit them. The important concepts, well, they all are. A motive, or motif, if you like the German, is a short recurring figure that appears throughout a composition or section of music. It is considered the germinating cell that unifies a larger expanse of music. All right, so what is a melodic motive, like on Rimsky-Korsakov here? Scheherazade, do you know your Scheherazade? I hope you do. Be-a-da-dum, be-a-da-dum, be-da-da-dum, bum, ba-da-dum, dee-da-da-da-da. Out of that whole line, be-a-da-dum, that's your motive. Simple as that, because then it's repeated, and it's repeated. That's actually going to be called a sequence later on because it's lower and it's lower again. And then it comes back. And if you know the piece, that keeps on hitting. So melodic motive is a repeated pitch pattern. With me on that? That's some nice alliteration. There are more examples that I won't do. Rhythmic motive, well, it's a melodic line that has the repeated rhythm. So they put that in here, da, 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 da. And then it plays again, and there's melody with it. Here's My Way. You know the song My Way? And now the time is near, and so I face my final journey. I do this one with my band every year for the seniors. So if you can't make out the rhythmic motive just by looking at the simple melody, they also put it down here for you. Da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. It's a repeated motive rhythmic. Appalachian Spring, rhythmic motive. I just pointed to the screen. You couldn't even tell. Rhythmic motive, and it goes along with exactly what that is. Rhythmic motives, not associated with melodic motives, also commonly appear as the motives in accompaniment figures. All right, we won't worry too much about accompaniment motives. I don't think we're going to have to write those. A sequence is the immediate restatement of a melodic motive or longer in the same instrumental or vocal part, higher or lower. So let's look at some examples, or let's look at characteristics. Must have at least 2 segments in the sequence. Most sequences have no more than 3 or 4. A sequence usually only has one direction, so that Scheherazade, for example we looked at, was going lower, and it only did it 3 times. The segments succeed each other at continuingly higher or lower pitches, like Scheherazade. Sequence segments usually continue by the same interval distance. Now, it doesn't have to be the exact minor third, minor second type of sequence. It could be, well, we'll get into it. Let's see what a real sequence is. A real sequence contains continuing segments that are exact transpositions. So what that means is every tone is exactly transposed as it goes. What that means is you're going to start to see accidentals, because if you stay within the key signature, you can't do the exact transpositions. A real sequence is only real if it follows the exact major third, minor second, whatever the intervallic sequence is. A tonal sequence stays within the diatonic scale. So you're not going to see accidentals unless it's a no key signature listed, but we're always going to have one, aren't we, for this class? So only diatonic notes. If it's a third to a second to a fourth, it doesn't matter that it's major or minor or perfect. as long as you have the number of the interval. Follow the examples, please. I'm not going to play or sing those for you. A modified sequence may be decorated or embellished in a way that does not destroy their original character. We may or may not see that. A false sequence repeats part of a figure and states the remainder in sequence, a mixture of sequence and repetition. And I can't say definitively that we do or don't see that one, but my memory makes me think we don't. Phrase is big for us, right? Phrases from now on. A phrase is a substantial musical thought, usually ending with a harmonic, melodic, and rhythmic cadence. All right, we're going to get into lots of examples of this. A phrase member is a part of a phrase. All right? Two phrase members, all these examples. Under certain conditions, never mind. You read it. You got to do your own reading of this anyway. A period. So you have your phrase. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. Right? There's part of well, that's a spoken phrase, but I'm sure you have a song for it too. Two adjacent phrases might be a period. They might be. They don't have to be. But we're going to do a lot of period work, so they will be. The second phrase ends with a strong cadence, usually perfect authentic. Watch for that. Perfect authentic is a good indicator of the end of a period. Closure must be achieved at the end of the second phrase. The first phrase ends with a weaker cadence. Half cadence is common. The two phrases bear some musical relationship to each other. Often they create a question and answer effect. That's called antecedent consequent. That matters. A parallel period has two phrases that are similar to each other. They even probably start the same. So let's take Camptown Races. The Camptown ladies sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. There's phrase number one, ends on a half cadence, right? That's a 5-chord. The Camptown racetrack 5 miles long, oh, doo-dah day. That's a distinctly different ending, but it still starts the same, so it's a parallel period. Cockles and Mussels, you know that one? Sing along with it. It starts exactly, watch this. Where's my, follow along, see what that does. It ends on your half cadence. Follow along, it looks exactly the same, and then it has a different ending, and it ends on a perfect authentic cadence. So that's a parallel period. Then there's more examples. Contrasting periods are similar, but they don't sound the same. So two phrases. How about the Ash Grove? La 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 la. There's your half cadence, end on a 5. La 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 la. Nobody in their right mind sings it that fast, but for sake of example, two phrases that work together but aren't the same. They don't have any overlapping material. That's a contrasting period. Three-phrase period has 3 phrases. Hello. Could be an AAB, could be an ABB, could be something. Examples of those I can't sing. Double period. I wonder if I have a better example. It's a 4-phrase period, but the most important thing in all of these is that they end with the perfect authentic cadence, and the last cadence is the strongest. Not a chance I'm singing that Mozart to you, but see, the third phrase ends on an imperfect authentic, 5/7 to 1. That's different, and then the final cadence is a perfect authentic cadence. There you go. Repeated phrases, non-period construction. It's a bunch of phrases together. Doesn't make a period. Modification of the phrase. Read about it. Phrase extension. How about a tag ending in jazz? Phrase extension, right? Beginning could happen in the beginning or the middle or the end. Cadential extension. Change of mode. Sometimes you extend phrases are modified. Sometimes you modify a phrase by going from major to minor or minor to major. Melodic structure, we're talking in this case about the climax tone. In the climax tone is the highest stressed pitch of a phrase or other unit. It is reached only once, but it can appear with reiterations of the pitch. We'll see that. And embellishments. So the phrase goes up, it hits the climax pitch, and then it goes back down, ascending and descending. Most phrases contain an ascent to and descent from the climax tone, although there could be changes. So here's a Beethoven example. It's going up. See, the line itself doesn't, it goes up and down. But we're moving up, we're moving up. We get to the tone which we repeat. It's still the climax, and then it's coming down, but you can see there's still waver within the line. But it's coming down, it's descending. Sometimes a phrase might be going 1, 3, 5 are going to be in there, and they circle that in the Corelli example for you. Lots of Beethoven examples. Sometimes 3, 2, 1, or what would that be? Mi, re, do, right? Coming down the phrase at the end. Do, do, do. It's Bach extends it way out. 3, 2, 1. That's a long way to come down. The history you're going to have to read about. I like all the history. Johnny Cash, I Walk the Line. 4-phrase. It's a 4-phrase segment. Ends on a because you're mine. I walk the line. Ends on a 1 chord. Jazz had regular phrase structures until about 1945, really the end of World War II, when big band died, and Charlie Parker and his crew brought about the change to bebop. I don't think they called it that, but bebop. So if you think about, if you're a jazzer, bebop has a very structured phrase, right? The head, which is the actual chart, and then they start soloing and soloing and soloing. Oftentimes, you will find structure by following the format of the head, and then they got into free jazz, and everything was out the window. All right, so I have to read the practice for you. Carefully study the melody of a tonal composition you are currently practicing for your instrument or voice. Now, I've been telling you this all the time, right? Look at the music you're doing in your ensembles, in your lessons, in whatever. See if you can identify motives, sequences, phrases, and phrase relationships. Notice the shape of the melody. Does each phrase have an ascent and a descent? Determine how these factors will affect your performance and experiment with various interpretations. So what they're talking about is taking your music theory and making musical interpretations out of it. And lo and behold, we're into the assignments now. All of these assignments that you get in Noteflight are part of the book. And they don't give you every single assignment from the book. Read number 6.7, which I think becomes maybe 6.5 for us in the Noteflight. Write a 4-measure phrase using harmonic minor, then rewrite it with an extension at the beginning. So you can read all that stuff. And that is as far as I'll go in the book. I am on to Noteflight. 6.1, notice everything is already written out for you. Oh, it's very, very slow. There we go. But I need to get into the instructions. Never skip the instructions. Each melodic excerpt contains 2 phrases. Determine if those make a period. If there is a period, tell the type. Look at that. The first one is done for you. Parallel or contrasting. That's it. It tells you parallel or contrasting. Let's listen to the first one. So it already tells you yes, parallel, but could you hear it? It does. I'm just looking at it. It starts out the exact same way, and it has a different ending. So that is a parallel period. So please, please, please listen to these things. There's your play button. Click where you are, click the play button, and listen to these things as you go. It makes all the difference. Your ears have to be able to tell you. Not just looking, but listening. You need to be able to hear these things. As you're learning on your AP exams, am I right? Your practice exams. Okay, assignment 6.2 already tells you the period, so what are we going to do? Use the following initial phrase to do this. Write an additional phrase to create a parallel period. Write an additional phrase to create a contrasting period. Write an additional 2 phrases to create a 3-phrase period. You may use your answer to number 1 or number 2 to get started. What does that mean? It means you could copy and paste. Because what are we doing here? Let's listen and read. Right? And if we look at the one where they ask for a contrasting period, oh my gosh, it's the same. Right? So when you, on the first one, you're pretty much going to write something like that, and then you have to end it different. I mean, you're going to, bam, put that in there. Put these in there, right there. and then end it differently, right? Not on a contrasting period. On a contrasting period, it has to go somewhere else and still end on A. It's in the key of A. It's major. You can tell by listening. Still end on A, but it's got to sound different in the second phrase. For the three-phrase period, you literally could put in what you put on number 1, and then have, or number 2, and then have a third phrase that ends the strongest. Must end the strongest. Are you with me on that? That's huge when you're doing three-phrase period. Any phrase. It must end stronger than any other. 6.3 looks like Mozart. Weren't we looking at Mozart in the book? Yes, we were. Whoa. All right, let's read what we're supposed to do. I think we're identifying. Make a complete melodic analysis of the piece by performing these tasks. Consider the highest sounding pitches. Move along in your analysis. So never mind the middle and lower voices. You're only analyzing the highest, the soprano line. Label the beginning of each period and phrase according to their content, capital or lowercase letters respectively. Label the beginning, okay? Label the type of each period as well, parallel, contrasting, etc. Use the text tool to give your answers. The first phrase and period are marked for you. So when we look at this, it's period A, phrase A. Period A, phrase A. So this is a long piece of music, right? Chances are pretty good that when you hit the next section after the repeat, it's probably going to be phrase B. Am I right? Or you have to decide. If it's a period, well, it's going to be a period. It tells you there's a period. Where does that end? You have to listen to this beauty. Oh, I've heard this before. Is this the end of a phrase? Because it started over. Sounds distinctly like a phrase or a period to me. Two different phrases. Then we move on. That's different. Would you call that a new phrase, new period? It's something different then. Does that sound exactly like the beginning? You need to know that. Was that maybe a cadential extension right there? There's lots of things you can write in here. So how many periods, which phrase within the period, right? And does it come back later? These are all things you can label, and you must label. Ask me questions if you don't know. Ask each other questions. Have a question? There's a whole discussion board for that. Ask each other questions. Don't make me answer. Okay, 6.5, we're going to be writing. I think this is kind of what we looked at in the book on 6.7, but this one is going to be called 6.5, and you're going to be writing some phrases. Awesome. Some of you have been just like itching to show me what you can write. Follow the instructions to create two melodies that include sequences. You may change the time signature, if you like, by clicking on current time signature. You must use the keys indicated. Don't change the keys, people. So you've got that one, and then you've got this one. You're just writing a melody. Don't give me chords. Don't analyze the whole thing, right? Melody in A minor include a tonal sequence of 2 segments. It's just not even, doesn't even say a phrase, right? A minor, A major, sorry, that's capital M. I was looking at the key signature thinking, that's not minor. Include a tonal sequence of 2 segments. Segment, segment, that makes a phrase. Melody in E minor, harmonic minor, folks. I better see some accidentals, right? Include a real sequence of 2 segments. What does real sequence mean? That means it's going to have some other accidentals. It's going to be a literal transposition of sequence. the um, the actual oh, stop that. No. Dang it. I just wanted to look at the instructions again. Remember real sequence. It's a literal transposition, right? Minor second goes to minor second. Major third goes to major third. You may change the time signature, but not the key signature. Use the keys indicated. So there you go. That's pretty much the assignment. I'm going to close out of there, and it's going to say, do you want to save? And I'm going to say no. Do you want to leave the site? Yep. I'm not saving that because you're going to see it. Okay. Back to the lessons, although I think we've probably covered everything you need covered at this point. My computer is so slow. I apologize for that because it's you having to sit there watching me do this.